me get...
Good morning. This is 96.9 FM WHYR-LP Baton Rouge Community Radio. Good morning. You are listening live to the first two-man debut of the Louisiana All-American Sports Show. My name is Eric Hatfield, and I am joined here with Coach Perry Daniels. And we are ready to bring you an exciting and scintillating and riveting hour chock full of sports.
We're going to start off with the high school roundup. That will start us off with Scotlandville beating Zachary last night. I am Perry Daniels, and as Eric Hatfield said, you're listening to 96.9 WHYR-LP Baton Rouge Community Radio. Last night, Scotlandville beat Zachary 38-19 to open up District 4 5A play. The Hornets are now 3-0. They were led by Dontrell Hilliard, a senior running back who had 208 total yards and 4 touchdowns. From there, we move on across the river to Plaquemine, where the Plaquemine Green Devils beat Jennings High 28-25. Plaquemine as a team rushed the ball for 51 times for a total of 342 yards, with running back Julius Markaling scoring 4 touchdowns on the ground, including a 53-yard run, which makes the Plaquemine Green Devils now 3-1 on the season. They're a state-ranked team in Class 4A. I don't remember correctly, Eric. I'm not sure if I remember correctly, Eric. I want to say they're around the 4th-ranked team in the state of Louisiana in classification 4A. From there, we go to the south side, down to the bottom, where the Central Wildcats and quarterback Jared Hayes took on the McKinley Panthers, and they put a whooping on McKinley. It was 42-15, which pushed the Central High Wildcats to 3-1. Hayes, the former McKinley Panther quarterback, he finished 10 for 16 for 178 yards and 1 touchdown. We've got an interview from the victorious coach Sid Edwards, and we're going to play that for you right now. This was immediately following the game.
All right, we're here with Coach Sid Edwards, whose team was victorious tonight over the McKinley High Panthers. Score was 42-14. Coach Edwards, could you give us your thoughts on tonight's game?
Very pleased with how we bounced back from last week. We had a concern. We dropped a tough one last Friday night, and to come on the road and come into to their place and play well meant a lot. It was a lot closer than the score indicated. As you saw the game, it was a fight.
It really was. It really was. And Jared Hayes, his first time back at McKinley, going against the McKinley High Panthers. If you could talk about that in his play tonight.
Impressive young man. He played tremendous. I thought he showed great poise. You can imagine the pressure he was under, and he came through in a big way.
And one last thing, if you could talk a little bit about Gary Triplett. That young man is phenomenal. If you could speak on him.
Hey, he is a great young man. Pleasure to coach and a great talent. A little undersized, but since will be a college, I think we'll be very happy with that young man.
I agree wholeheartedly. Thank you, Coach Edwards. Good luck to you on the rest of the season.
Thank you very much.
That was Coach Sid Edwards from the Central High Wildcats right after his 42-15 victory last night against the McKinley High Panthers. Eric, he mentioned Gary Triplett in that interview. You want to talk about what you saw with Gary Triplett last night?
What I saw was a little ball of speed and energy and agility. I was very impressed with young Mr. Triplett. He's a guy, he's a slim guy, but you can see he's got strength. You can see sometimes he just would barrel into his potential tacklers. He could cut on a dime. The next game that I scout on behalf of a college will be my first one, but just eyeballing it, he has all the makings of somebody who can play college ball. He was making just incredible cuts, catches. He was a guy that did it all on offense, and he is going to be an invaluable asset to some college or university.
You know what, Eric, and I was a little surprised last night when Coach Edwards mentioned that he's going to make some university a good ball player. That sounded to me as though, he's not being heavily recruited. And you would think with that type of talent that the young man would be heavily recruited. So you Division I colleges out there, maybe a Southern University, maybe Louisiana Lafayette. You know, he may even be able to play at a higher level than that.
I agree, Perry. I mean, there are two things you cannot teach and cannot coach. You cannot teach speed, and you generally cannot teach somebody how to cut on a dime like that. And that was something we've been covering high school games on Louisiana All-AmericanSports.com for a couple of years now. And there are only a handful of players who I've seen like that, who can move like that. So I agree. He's got a future somewhere, somehow. And in a big school like Central, I think it's just a matter of time.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. Now let's move to. Let's move. Oh, go ahead.
One last, just real quick. You mentioned Scotlandville, Dontrell Hilliard.
Yes,
that's another fella. You know, for those of you out there who are into the high school sports, that was the fella. If you remember, he made that catch on the last play of the game against McKinley. He's got everything. He can run and he can catch. And that's another guy. I don't know how heavily he's being recruited, but I'm hearing that name over and over and over again. I just would be remiss if I didn't mention him before moving on to the college games.
I'm glad you did, Eric. Actually, Baton Rouge has a number of high talented running backs in this area. When you talk about Dontrell Hilliard, when you talk about Nick Brosette, who we saw with WHYR, the guy from Plaquemine who we mentioned earlier, Julius Marcalin, rushed for 4 touchdowns last night. If you can check him out on YouTube, he's got highlights out of this world. That's Julius Marcalin, phenomenal running back. And then the best of the bunch is a young man from East Ascension, Palahi. He's already signed with LSU. And this young man, last week, he had 12 touches for like 385 yards. So, you know, there's a plethora of running backs in the Baton Rouge area. And even Tyrone Scott last night for McKinley.
Right. Yeah, that little guy I was very impressed with. You know, that's the second time we've seen him play. And that's another guy. Now, he's not quite as agile as Gary Triplett, who we're talking about, but he's got some speed and cuts. He's got good vision down the field, too, for a small guy.
You're exactly right. Let's move on, though. At WHYR yesterday, Garrett Brumfield, a 6'4", 200-pound LSU signee, offensive tackle, announced that he's going to play January the 2nd in the National Under Armour football game. We had a chance to see this guy, and he's just a massive human being.
It's a very big kid. When we saw them play Southern Lab, you know, and Southern Lab has for a single A school, has an army.
That's right.
of kids, and he was just throwing people around like rag dolls, like he was like, "Get out of my way! I want my sandwich."
That's right.
It was something else, Barry.
And I've got a feeling, Eric, he's going to make the Louisiana faithful proud, the LSU faithful proud on January 2nd when he plays in that game. Now, this is a couple years in a row we've had a Louisiana representative in that game. I remember 2 years ago, Lyle Collins, the LSU offensive lineman, played in that game. And I'm just looking forward to seeing Garrett Brumfield on the field January the 2nd in the National Under Armour football game. Now, his team later on last night, actually went on to beat Bruley 46-14 in an almost massacre. The WHYR Cubs are now 3-0. Actually 4-0. Take that back. 4-0. And they're really on a roll in their new classification, Class 3A, and they're headed for a showdown with the traditional 3A powerhouse and the defending state champion, Parkview Baptist Eagles. That game's going to come up later on this year, so we'll look forward to that. And rounding out our high school roundup, today we have 2 5A ranked schools that are traveling to New Orleans, where they play football games on Saturdays, where they play high school games on Saturdays. We've got the number 3A team in the state, the Catholic High Bears. They're traveling down to take on Rummel, which should be a really good football game.
Oh, yeah. I used to live in Metairie a long time ago, and I could actually see Rummel High School from my balcony. That place is packed no matter how insignificant the opponent is, and this is a significant opponent. That should be good.
Significant opponent, the number 3 ranked team in Class 5A. And the number 9th ranked team in Class 5A, East Ascension, they're also traveling to New Orleans to take on Brother Martin.
That's going to be a battle. Brother Martin was always a power. You know, in the late 80s, they were a missed field goal away from playing for the state championship, something I don't think any New Orleans team has done in my lifetime, and I'm in my late 30s. So that should be a good battle, too. And East Ascension always brings it. Don't they have a high prize recruit on East Ascension?
Pelehi, the running
that's
back
right.
that we mentioned earlier.
Right. So that should be a good battle. For those of you who are high school junkies, take a trip down to the Crescent City, and you should be in for a treat.
Both of those teams, Catholic High and East Ascension, are looking to remain undefeated in Class 5A to move to 4-0. We'll see if they can come out of New Orleans with the victory, and that's going to round out our high school report.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to put a button on our high school roundup, and we're going to transition to the college game. And of course, Baton Rouge has two heavily followed college programs playing some big games today. We're going to get to something about some bushes or some azaleas. We're going to get to LSU Georgia momentarily, but first we're going to go to the squad across the bluff.
Well, today, the Southern University Jaguars take on the Jackson State Tigers. This is a huge game in the SWAC. For all you SWAC fans out there and Southern University fans, I know you've been looking forward to this all year. These two teams have played every year since 1958. A total of 57 games, Eric. And check out the records. Southern's won 29 and Jackson State's won 28. That's how competitive this rivalry is. And they're going to resume this rivalry at 6 o'clock this evening on the bluff in A.W. Mumford Stadium.
I'll tell you something, Perry. You know, Southern and Jackson State have both had some strong years and some lean years during all those contests over the last over a half century. And I find it interesting that no matter what, that the series has remained so close. It just goes to show you with a rivalry like that, you can put throw the records out of the window.
You really can, but this year both teams come into this game 2-2, 2-0 in the SWAC conference. So they're playing. It's a meaningful game. This year you've got Southern University leading the Eastern Division of the SWAC, as well as Jackson State leading the Western. No, correction. That's the other way around. Jackson State's leading the West. No, I had it right. Jackson State's leading the East. Southern University is leading the West. Pardon me, folks. But look, even more so, Jackson State comes into the game with a 6th-ranked defense in FCS. That's a nationally ranked defense. They're 6th in the country, giving up only 274.5 yards and 122 yards passing. They're coached by Coach Rick Comagee. They're looking to get some revenge from last year when the Southern University Jaguars went to Jackson, Mississippi and upset the Tigers in Coach Dawson Odom's first game as a Jaguar head coach. The Jaguars won on a last-second play, and the Tigers are looking for revenge today. Now, Southern's also 2-0 in the SWAC. They've got the 12th-ranked passing offense in the country, averaging 305 yards per game. They've got Lee Doss. He was the player of the week last week in the SWAC. So far on the year, he's got 19 catches for 378 yards.
Wow, that's
in 4 games.
That's about 20 yards a catch, Perry. just off the top of my head, that's a deep threat.
So now we've got great defense going against a great passing game. Coach Odom believes that they can still pass the ball, that Southern University can still pass the ball against these Tigers, although Jackson State has Quay Cox, who was the player of the year in the SWAC last year defensively. He's a cornerback for Jackson State. He's going to match up against Lee Doss. And last year in their matchup, Lee Doss had 4 catches for 66 yards. It's going to be interesting. That may very well be the game right there. If Lee Doss can get over 100 yards today, or 66 yards again today, or more, Southern University may be able to pull out a victory again.
I'll tell you what, Perry. I'm impressed with some of the changes we've observed with the Southern football team since Coach Odoms has been there. I got to say, there's just something about the man's presentation. There's something about Coach Odoms, his presence. He's just first of all, he has a reputation for being a disciplinarian. And, I got to say, he just looks like, if I were on the team, he just looks like he could take you right now. He's almost like the antithesis of Mr. Clean. I mean, he looks like he's just been rolling around the dust, and if you miss an assignment, he's going to get that three-point stance and knock you over. He just looks like a guy you wouldn't play with, And I think there's something to that, all joking aside.
Those of you who have never seen Coach Odoms, he's a huge man. Very dark pigmentation with a bald head, which is the Mr. Clean reference, right. I'm thinking. And he is an intimidating person just looking at it.
Right.
However, he's done a fantastic job up at Southern, and he has focused on discipline. Discipline. And I look forward to the Jags. Now, I'm going to make a prediction here. I think the Jags... I don't think they're going to pull this victory out today. I'm a Southern University alum, and I love those Jaguars. However, I think the feat is a little too much today. Jackson State has too much offense, too much defense. That offense, the quarterback who leads the way was recruited by Ole Miss.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you know why he chose JSU?
Well, what happened is he got into an altercation on the sideline with his high school coach. Ole Miss rescinded the offer.
Right.
Told him he could come walk on. He elected to go to a JUCO instead, and now he's ended up at Jackson State.
Yeah, Ole Miss has a long reputation. I was reading Walter Payton's biography, and they had actually were recruiting him, and this was a time when integration was just starting in the SEC level, and they looked at him and they were impressed, but he kind of showboated on the way to the end zone of one of his games, and the scout wrote down, I'll censor, we don't need a guy like that on our team. Use your imagination, but the point is they've never had, you don't see that at Ole Miss, the high stepping and the getting in the coach's face. That's a quick ticket to the bench.
Right, and we're going to get into, we may get into a little Ole Miss because they've got a very big game coming up today. We may get into a little Ole Miss a little later on. But finishing up with the Jackson State Southern University game, I think it's going to be very interesting. The winner of this game is going to have the inside track on the SWAC championship, and we may see a rematch of these two teams if they can continue to win after this in the SWAC championship because they're on separate sides of the conference. They may play twice again this year as they did 1 year prior to this year in the SWAC championship. So these two teams are the top of the class of the SWAC, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Now let's get into a little LSU.
Yes, sir. Well, we're going to head east to Athens, Georgia, between the hedges, as LSU has a huge game coming up this afternoon at 2:30 Central Daylight Time on CBS. Number 6 LSU in its first road game of the year is going to travel to play Georgia, the number 9 team in the country, 2-1 record with a loss earlier this year at the hands of Clemson, and then rallying to defeat South Carolina and then North Texas. LSU 4-0 has not trailed for 1 second this whole entire season. It's going to be a very good matchup. Now, Vegas has Georgia, at least as of yesterday, as a 3-point favorite, which I thought was very curious. Now, granted, what you'll hear all the time, I'm not a big gambler or bettor, but I listen to enough of these shows that cater to those individuals that'll say, home field advantage is worth 3 points. So what they're effectively saying is that on a neutral site, this is a toss-up. Well, LSU's unbeaten. Georgia got hammered, got beaten like a drum, at least on the ground, by South Carolina. LSU's 4-0. Georgia's 2-1. LSU hasn't trailed all year. Georgia's been in 2 dogfights with two quality teams in South Carolina and in Clemson. LSU has a stingy defense. Georgia's given up 30 points a game. LSU has an embarrassment of riches in the backfield. Georgia does have that Todd Gurley, who's a bad man. He's a bad man. But LSU has a counterpart in Jeremy Hill, and they have Alfred Blue and Terrence McGee. I find it surprising that Vegas is effectively saying that at a neutral site this is a toss-up when all of the metrics dictate otherwise. And then the person I haven't even mentioned yet is the quarterback, Zach Mettenberger, who's just made a tremendous leap in his development between last year and this year. And Mettenberger's already thrown for 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns, 1 interception. He's already getting some early rumblings for the Heisman. Of course, in September, that means nothing. But nonetheless, I think LSU is going to win that game. And here's the real X factor, in my opinion, because, again, Georgia has another very good quarterback in Aaron Murray, who's also thrown for 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns, only 2 picks. But Georgia's defense, even going back to last year, has had problems. Their secondary was very porous last year, and that's what I think caused them to founder late in the season. And even last week against North Texas was only down 7 points at the half. This is a mid-major. This is a body bag game, a rent-a-win game, a team you pay to beat the crap out of. And they had a contest going to the second half because they have had trouble stopping people. Now, Georgia can put up some points. I mean, they're averaging over 40 a game, and they're a good team, well coached. But, Perry, not only do I like LSU in this game, maybe I just have purple and gold shades on. I don't see how Georgia is favored by 3 points in this game.
Yeah, well, you do have purple and gold shades on. However, I think that, well, tell me this, Eric. This is Georgia's third top 10 football team in this young season. Do you think that will play any factor? LSU hasn't really played a top 10 opponent. Right. TCU was a ranked opponent.
Right, they were in the 20s.
Yeah. And Auburn wasn't, and the other two were tune-up games.
Wins, yep.
So do you think that that'll play a factor? And the other thing is Mettenberger going home.
Right.
To he's from the state of Georgia. He was once a Georgia Bulldog. What do you think? What type of impact do you think those things may have?
Well, I love how athletes will say, I have not heard too much of Mettenberger's commentary. The athletes only get to speak to the media so much before games. But I will tell you that anybody that says, oh, it's just another game and, it's I'm going to prepare like we do every week, that is bull hockey. Okay, Mettenberger was offered a scholarship by Georgia. It was rescinded. Granted, it was his own fault. But if you don't think he has something to prove as an athlete, if he doesn't have that competitive drive to go home and want to show people something, not to mention the fact that he is going back home, I've got some beachfront property in Arizona for you. He's going to be prepared, not to mention the fact it's just a huge game for both teams. I mean, if LSU wants to win the SEC, they only have maybe one loss the entire season they can afford to give up, and it can't be the Bama or Texas A&M who are in their division. So, Georgia, the preparation is going to be peak for both teams. From that standpoint, it kind of is another game. I mean, I'm sure Mettenberger is going to leave nothing to chance and kind of dot his I's and cross his T's. But, both of these teams, I think, have got to prepare very hard in the week coming in. But, yeah, I think there's a little extra something in Mettenberger. When something is personal and you can do something about it, when there's control in your hands and you're an athlete and you have the competitive drive and the skill to reach a level like he's reached, a quarterback at an SEC school, a top 10 school, you're going to have your reading glasses on, your magnifying glasses on. You're going to be focused and dialed in, Perry.
Well, tell me this, though, Eric. I mean, surely the Georgia student body, they're going to have all of their signage reminding him of why he's not a Bulldog.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Can I jump in real quick?
Sure.
Mettenberger, remember he's a redshirt senior, 5th-year senior, but he's been on the team for 3 years. Although he didn't really get much action until last year. He did get a little action intermittently as a sophomore, but he said 2 years ago when we went there between the hedges and Jordan Jefferson and Jarrett Lee had that carousel going. He said he was getting heckled. He said, I'll just read you a quote. It was pretty bad 2 years ago getting heckled, and I didn't even play, so I can imagine it's going to be that much better this time around. I'm expecting the worst, but I've just got to go in there with a level head and play football. There we go again. Wait, here's the best part. I'm looking forward to Sunday morning tremendously, so he knows it's coming. He knows it's coming. He didn't even play and he got heckled. You know it's coming.
For those of you that are unaware, Mettenberger was convicted, was he?
I know he was arrested and charged. I'm not sure about the legal record.
Of a sexual encounter, a sexual assault actually, there in the state of Georgia, and which makes the LSU leading passer and the LSU leading rusher both sex offenders.
Right.
Not that I'm knocking either guy. They're young kids. They should be given a second chance. As many chances as they can be afforded.
Right.
Actually, So I don't think you can personally hold that against either young man. However, fans.
Hey, 16 will get you 20, Perry. 16 will get you 20. That's about all I can say.
But fans can be brutal. And even the LSU fans, until Jeremy Hill started running touchdowns for them, they were brutal on Jeremy Hill.
Well, that's going to happen. As the late Heavy D might say, their name was Diddly Dit, the name was Diddly Diddly D. I mean, you just, what, they did the crime, they did the time, or they went through the judicial process, it was adjudicated, they've been punished, Hill's still on probation. Mettenberger, whether he's convicted or not, paid a heck of a price, independent of the penal system. For his use of his own penal system, and shame on him. But he lost a big opportunity, and he lost a couple of years of his college career. So they've definitely, I have nothing against either of them personally, but fans are fans, and they're going to try to get in their head. They're going to do what fans do, because to fans, they don't think of these guys as players. They're robots, or they're objects almost. They aren't humanized. Even at the college level, you'd expect them to still identify with these players as young people, but that's just not the reality that we're in. And they want Georgia to win, and they're going to throw everything plus the kitchen sink at Mr. Mettenberger today.
Yeah, I think we have to get better as a society, remembering that these young men are young men, and they are going to make some mistakes. And it's just a football game. At the end of the day, as big of a football game as it is, it's still just a football game. So I just think we have to keep that in mind. I think this game is going to come down to this, though, Eric. I think that the youth of the Georgia secondary and the experience of the LSU receivers is going to be the difference. I think the running games will wash out.
Right, I agree especially with Gurley back there.
Both running backs are tremendous running backs.
Can I just jump in with one thing? They do have a heck of a weapon with Gurley back there. But where I think one of the differences are made is that LSU has rotates three guys. And if you want to count the fullback Copeland, AC Copeland, they can run you over. They can just rotate and stay fresh. Georgia has Gurley. The guy after that, his name is Marshall. I want to say his first name is Kendall. I cannot remember for sure, but Marshall is a good solid runner, but he's averaging less than 4 yards a carry, whereas LSU has those three guys. They've got to be averaging well over 5. I think Copeland might be averaging 4 a carry. My whole point, though, is they have a trio or even a quartet of fresh legs they can bring in. Gurley's only one man, and I think LSU has a little bit of a buffer there.
And the LSU defense. All of the pundits have raved about the LSU defense and how tremendous and fast they are, and the defensive coordinator,
Mr. Chavis.
How Coach Chavis is the best in the industry. So that may play a factor as well. I am a little concerned about going between the hedges.
Yeah, that's a tough place to play.
That's a tough place to play. And I'm a Bulldog fan back to Herschel Walker days.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
However, I do think that if Mettenberger can get some time, if the LSU offensive line, a massive group that they've done a great job so far this year.
They sure have.
That if he has time, those wide receivers, Beckham is tremendous.
I've been talking about Mettenberger for Heisman, and he's put up the resume. But Odell Beckham Jr. I think Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry, the split end on the other side, they've both stepped their games up. They are both running crisper routes. They are both making better catches. And Beckham, let's not forget, he's also a threat in the return game. And we saw him torch TCU. He's busted a couple of long ones this year. I mean, I think Odell, you might have two guys on the same team as Heisman finalists. I know it's not going to happen, but I'm saying they're both guys who are really standing out at a very high level this year. Now, with Mettenberger being the quarterback, it's always going to get top billing. But LSU has got some, they have a passing game, a real passing game that they have not had really since Matt Flynn was here. And when Matt Flynn was here, we won the national championship in 2007, Perry.
With a similar type defense.
Right. Very stingy, very aggressive, tough on the run. And that 07 defense was a little porous against the pass, and that could have cost us late in the year, losing to teams like Arkansas and giving up to Kentucky and giving up a lot of points. But the bottom line is, while that team was unbeaten in regulation, I think we actually have a better secondary this year as far as total defense, maybe not in terms of turnovers, but certainly total defense and scoring. I think we have, just from what my eyes tell me, a better defense now than we did in 2007.
Yeah. So I'm going to say that LSU is going to pull this out in a squeaker. Maybe they're 3-point favorites. I'm thinking they'll win by 3 or 4. It's amazing to me how good the guys in Vegas are when it comes to these games.
So they don't lose money out there.
That's just amazing to me. And with the world right now, those of you that are the most popular sport in the world fans, soccer or the football, them going through their scandal of fixing matches, it just makes me say, as Arsenio Hall would say, when I look at how close the Vegas guys are every game. Even last week with LSU being a 13.5-point favorite and Auburn scoring a late touchdown to come within 14 points of a victory. So,
it's one of the beautiful things about America as Michael Douglas's character, what was his name, Gordon Gekko, on Wall Street would say, greed is good because you have 22 guys on the field, over 100 on a college team, 53 at the professional level who all have personal interests. You can try to rig a game, but it's generally not in anybody's best interest to do so. And see Pete Rose for reference if you do that in the States. With football, you got guys who are going back to their haciendas there with no air conditioning and, holes in the mud huts for windows. And I'm being a little facetious, but, with exploitation comes opportunity and a breeding ground for corruption. And you just... when the guys have rewards, as they do here in the States, there's less opportunity. I
think there's some exploitation in the college game.
I agree. That's a whole. We're going on I-10 and boom, that's taking us right to I-55.
But let's move on. Let's see any other college games you want to talk about.
I do want to talk about that, and let this lesson though, this conversation on LSU Georgia and Zach Mettenberger and Jeremy Hill. I have a public service announcement to you high school kids out there from your old Counselor Mackey kids. Sexual assault is bad. Statutory is bad, okay? You shouldn't commit statutory. So that'll be my lesson on that. It could really cost you. Moving on, there is also another big SEC matchup in the top 25 as we have Ole Miss going to play Alabama. And, one thing I will say, Alabama has a perpetual target on its back every single week. Every single week, Perry. So, Alabama's look very good. I don't think they've looked perfect. I don't think that their defense is quite... Let me temper that comment. Their defense is very, very good. Their defense is very good. I don't think they are as smothering as they were last year or as suffocating as they were in 2011. The last 2 years when they won the national championship, though I think the first one was a little tainted. I digress. But, those defenses were reminiscent of some of the old Bear Bryant teams that... we're sometimes not allowing people to score for touchdowns for weeks at a time. So, Perry, any commentary on that one?
There's no way Ole Miss is going to beat Alabama. There's just no way. Everyone's talking about, the new Ole Miss offense and how many points it's putting on the board. The only way Ole Miss is going to beat Alabama is if the Alabama Crimson Tide have a letdown. They overlook Ole Miss for whatever reason and think like I do that there's no way Ole Miss is going to beat Alabama. And I just don't think, hey, I'm a Nick Saban fan. And, not a fan, but I just have an appreciation for Nick Saban and what he does. So I don't think that's going to happen. The man is too process-oriented. He doesn't allow his team to have very many highs or very many lows. I had the pleasure of going to his coaching clinic this past year, and it's just amazing to me how systematic Coach Saban is. and I don't think there's no way the Alabama Crimson Tide are going to overlook a 21-ranked Ole Miss team and allow them to sneak up on them. So they're going to come with their A game like they do in most games, and they're going to beat Ole Miss. It's not quite like the Ole Miss-LSU rivalry where Ole Miss plays LSU tough no matter what they're ranked.
Right.
So I think Ole Miss is going to be a little intimidated going into Alabama.
Right.
And playing there. So, I just don't see it happening.
I don't either. Ole Miss is improving very rapidly. They have done a phenomenal job of recruiting. They've done such a phenomenal job of recruiting that, they've been asked some questions when they got a couple of high-priced recruits, like, wait, you all are Ole Miss? No, why would anybody want to go there? You suck. But they have improved dramatically, but it's...
They're putting up some points here.
Yeah, they are.
You can't contest that.
I want to say it's not happening today. The only thing is the SEC is almost like the NFL, where a win is a win is a win, and on any given Sunday, or in this case, any given Saturday, the gap between the worst and the best is only so great, and Ole Miss is not the worst. So I think Saban will be prepared. I do think their one, I will not use the word weakness, but their one fall off, the one area where they're not as dominant as in the years past, is on that defensive side. I don't think they're bulletproof like they've been the last couple of years, and Ole Miss can put some points on the board. So we will see where that goes. But I agree with you. I think Alabama wins. I don't think it's close in the fourth quarter. But if you're an LSU fan, or for that matter, a Texas A&M fan out there, you can hold on to a little bit of hope. It's definitely worth at least tuning in to see the game.
All right, so let's take a little break right now, and when we come back, we'll have some NFL. As well as some other sports.
Bum, 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 bum.
AC's not working.
I saw the memo. That's why I dressed very right.
That's why I opened that door. All right, you're listening to Louisiana All-American Sports on 96.9 WHYR-LP Baton Rouge Community Radio. Now we'll transition to NFL football, where this Monday night we have the New Orleans Saints taking on the Miami Dolphins.
A very scintillating matchup in the National Football League. I've always wanted to do that. Miami 3-0, New Orleans 3-0. A couple of the few unbeatens remaining in the NFL. They're going to get it on, as Mills Lane would say, on Monday night in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. I think you're looking at two teams. You're looking at a team that, once again, with all of its pieces together, and by all of its pieces, I mean a coach and a general manager and an assistant coach and some coordinators. Basically the people that run the franchise. Sean Payton back in the building. The Saints look like the Saints of 2011 and 2010 and 2009, an offensive powerhouse that has the ability to contend for a Super Bowl. They played one of the NFC runner-ups, beat the Falcons. It was a close game, but when you beat them, who cares?
Beat the Falcons.
Then you have they spanked Arizona with a paddle. I'm sorry, forgot about the Tampa Bay game. I was trying to spit that one out. They went to Tampa, struggled with a division rival, although Tampa's got a very tough defense, but managed to pull it off in spite of doing everything to keep the Buccaneers in the game, and thunderstorms and locusts and brimstone, and pulled out that divisional game. And in a divisional game, you can kind of throw the records out of the window. And I think Coach Schiano in Tampa Bay has the defense playing very well. And then last week really put the wood to Bruce Arians and his Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals came out hot, and the Saints quickly cooled that off from all angles. The defense really stepped its game up. What you're seeing in the Saints is what fans have expected to see. I mean, we're a little elated because we didn't see that last year because they didn't have a coach. But and I think if there were ever a question about the value of coaching, you saw it in the 2012 season. But the Saints are back. The Saints themselves and their high-octane offense. Now, Miami, on the other hand, under Coach Joe Philbin, they have been taking baby steps since last year, and you're starting to see that come to fruition. I mean, they pulled off a significant upset against the Atlanta Falcons last week, and I don't think Vegas or anybody else had Miami winning that football game. But nonetheless, they came in there. Their second-year quarterback, Ryan Tannehill, is playing well. Just having the threat of the speedy Mike Wallace, while he's only had some big numbers, he only had big numbers in week 2, the defense is focused on Mr. Wallace. And that has enabled him, that's opened up some passing lanes and has made the defense have to play back against the Dolphins. The Dolphins are a respectable team, and the Saints have got to prepare for this Monday night matchup. I think they will. I don't think Sean Payton is going to let them go in with a knife to a gunfight on national television on Monday Night Football. But Perry, I think this is going to be a good game. I think Saints fans are going to be in their seats going into the fourth quarter. This is going to be a tough matchup. I know the Saints are favored on paper. I've forgotten the line. But it is not going to be easy for the black and gold.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned Mike Wallace, intricate part of the Miami Dolphins defense, a New Orleans native, formerly from, he prepped at Old Perry Walker High School. He was an Old Perry Walker Charger, along with Keenan Lewis, the cornerback for the Saints. He's also from New Orleans and prepped at Old Perry Walker. So these two guys are used to being teammates. They both played formerly for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So they're looking forward to their matchup. They're best of friends. And it's going to be really interesting to see what happens there. The Saints are playing at a very high level. And they're just operating very efficiently. And they're starting to get on a little roll. They're starting to... The Cardinal game, I thought, would have been a closer game. However, the Cardinals are a young team. They were playing on the road.
Right.
I think they're a little better than they displayed in the Superdome last week. However, the Saints, you can't take anything away from the Saints. They are playing really good football right now. And Graham, the tight end, he went beast mode.
I mean, Jimmy Graham, I've been hearing all offseason, Jimmy Graham, considered by many to be one of the best in the NFL. All right, I'm going to say it right here. You heard it first on LouisianaAllAmericanSports.com. Last week was the kicker. Jimmy Graham, right now, on Saturday, September the 28th, 2013, Jimmy Graham is the best tight end in the NFL right now. This guy has it all. He's got size, he's got quickness, he's got height, and then he can crush you if he has to throw a block. He can do everything, Perry. 134 yards and 2 touchdowns last week. Drew Brees now has 300 yards in every game this year. He has a string. Somebody out there, I'm sure, is going to text me or correct me, but I want to say it's 9 consecutive games now that Brees has 300 yards passing. He's right where he needs to be to have another 5,000-yard passing season, which even in this pass-oriented, kind of wussified NFL where you can't touch anybody, can't touch the quarterback, can't touch the receivers.
Whoa.
That's still impressive.
I don't know. It's becoming a safer NFL, which by Terrell Pryor's incident this past football weekend with the concussion, there's a definite need for a safer NFL football. So I'm not going to say we're going to term that that way. The NFL has issues. And in fact, one of Jimmy Williams, a former NFL player.
Played for the Saints, didn't he?
Played for the Saints, and now on the Episcopal High coaching staff. This past week, he and his wife joined the NFL lawsuit over the concussions. And trying to get some, it's not money. People hear the $765 million that the NFL owners have agreed to pay in this lawsuit. Well, it's not actual cash to the players. It's going to be medical coverage. So the NFL is trying to clean up its process, its game. So I think we as fans, we have to accept that. Now, here's the problem, though. When boxing went through a similar type of outrage about its brutality, it made room for MMA and ultimate fighting.
Let 2 guys beat the crap out of each other in the middle of the octagon.
and that's what the NFL is scared of.
Male action.
NFL is scared of that if they clean the football game up too much, it's going to open up a new lane in the business world that will provide the type of brutality that we as Americans seem to love.
Well, let me tell you something, Perry. I think the only way, boxing did have some issues with the brutality, and it definitely helped MMA. But let me tell you what the biggest problem boxing had. Boxing went from your Nike and your Body Glove to they can be sponsored by Sominex, Ambien. What's the one with the sheep? The sleep mattress, whatever. It became boring. You can only name. In my opinion, the only boxer who's worth a damn going to see is Floyd Mayweather. Maybe Manny Pacquiao. I did like that fellow, that Alvarez fellow that he fought last week. But the point is, you've got to sell the personalities. Muhammad Ali. People would rather, to borrow a line from the Don King movie, people would rather watch Muhammad Ali watch a fight than watch the heavyweight champion of the world, Klitschko, fight. And probably 90% of you out there didn't even know that the heavyweight champ was named Klitschko. He's a Ukrainian.
Well, I didn't want to get into a boxing discussion.
I'm sorry.
But however, your point's well taken. But however, there are a lot of other very interesting fighters out there. You just have to be a fight fan. But let's get back to football.
Sure.
The Atlanta Falcons, who the Saints beat this year, the Saints beat the Atlanta Falcons. Who are they taking on this week?
We have Atlanta, and they are playing the New England Patriots Sunday Night Football in the Georgia Dome. You have a very lean and very hungry Atlanta team. They are 1-2. They were beaten by the Saints in a game that I think they could walk off the field and feel no shame because it was close at the end. But then they lost to Miami, and I think their pride's a little hurt from that last week. Julio Jones had a 100-yard game. Jacquizz Rodgers ran the ball well, and they still got punched in the mouth by the Dolphins. And they are, not only is their pride hurt, but they're lean and hungry, and they need this win, even though it's an interconference matchup. And Tom Brady and the Patriots are coming to town. I saw something flash across the ticker last night, I believe, that said Rob Gronkowski is not going to play again. And if that is in fact accurate, he has no weapons. The Patriots have... First of all, Tom Brady is Hall of Famer, one of the best quarterbacks of all time. Bill Belichick, for all of his personality shortcomings, is a fantastic coach. He knows the game. They are not going to get run over by teams the likes of the young and developing New York Jets at home. They're not going to lose to the Buffalo Bills, even though that game was uncomfortably close, too, for Patriots fans. They are not going to get mollywopped, so to speak, by some of the teams in the league that are still growing, or maybe some of the inferior teams in the NFL. But, and there's a big but, the size of a hippopotamus but, they're going to Atlanta. They're playing a team that is a contender for a Super Bowl. They're going into the Georgia Dome. There is no Rob Gronkowski. There is no running back Shane Vereen. Aaron Hernandez is in the slammer. They have Julian Edelman. Danny Amendola. I don't know if he's going to play this week. I know he was really banged up early in the season, but he's not 100%, even if he does play. Wes Welker, of course, took his bruised pride across the country to Denver. Tom Brady is going into a gunfight. The Falcons have choppers and AK-47s and M16s, and Brady has a 6-shooting revolver with double action.
And not to mention that Atlanta must win this game.
Right.
If things go as we anticipate on Monday night with the Saints beating the Dolphins, if Atlanta loses this game, they're 3 games behind the Saints.
That's right.
So they cannot fall that far back and expect to still win the NFC South.
Absolutely not.
So this is a must-win game. They're gonna play really, really hard, and I think Atlanta will pull this victory out over the undefeated New England Patriots, which would leave
on paper.
Right. Well, then that'll be 2 undefeateds down, which would leave the Saints as one of the last ones standing.
Right. They're not a whole heck of a lot left. I think, just looking at the standings here, you have, as of right now, you have the Chicago Bears, and Jay Cutler, who I've always thought is very talented, has gotten even better. I think that, the new coaching regime that they have there in Chicago, Mark Trestman has done. I'd never heard of him before this year, but if you don't know, you better ask somebody, because he's doing a heck of a job. And they have got Cutler playing some good football under that regime. Saints are 3-0. The Seattle Seahawks, who, in my opinion, for the moment, I think are the best team in the NFL.
Without a doubt.
That remains to be seen, but they're still 3-0. Patriots 3-0. and the Denver Broncos, who I think, barring an injury to Peyton Manning, are going to the Super Bowl. And then, not to mention, Von Miller hasn't even come back from his suspension yet. I think Denver is just, if number 18 stays healthy, I think they're the best in the AFC. But they're 3-0, and the surprising Kansas City Chiefs under the jolly coach who always reminds me of a Christmas ham with a mustache, Andy Reid, has got that team completely turned around. He and Alex Smith are bringing the consistent, disciplined, smart football to some of those young guys in Kansas City, and they're playing good ball out there. So there are only a handful of unbeatens left, and the Saints are one of them. Right. And hopefully another one will bite the dust. Well, we know one's going to bite the dust, but hopefully two bite the dust.
That's right.
Over this coming weekend.
Well, you know what? It really doesn't matter, because if New England stays undefeated, that means Atlanta loses. So, for Saints fans and New Orleans folks, we can live with that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. I have no problem there. I'll say this much, though. Actually, I take back what I said a moment ago. We do want only one unbeaten to go down because, frankly, while I want the Saints to have the best record in the league of all that, the Patriots are an AFC teams that don't really affect us at all until we play them. And my fanhood, I'm not a fan of the Patriots. I think Tom Brady's a bit of a pipsqueak who stumbled into his position, but then became very good. And I think Bill Belichick is as arrogant of a coach as you'll find. So I'm not a fan, but they're very good. But all that said, I'll be rooting very hard for the Patriots on Sunday night to take down the Dirty Birds.
We're almost out of time here. We've got 6 minutes left. Let's transition to some baseball. There was some significant things that took place over the week. Mainly, someone wrapped up the NL Central. Do you know?
Yeah, the National League Central. St. Louis shut out Chicago last night, blew them to smithereens. I want to say the score was 7-0, 9-0, 7-0. So they, with one touchdown, they blanked the Chicago Cubs. So St. Louis has now clinched the National League Central. It's going down though right now this weekend. There are 2 days of regular season baseball left, and there is a lot left up in the air. Boston needs a win today to clinch home field throughout the American League playoffs outright today. The Tampa Bay Rays have been caught by the Cleveland Indians for a tie for the first place in that wild card. Cleveland has been
a great race.
Sniffing around, hanging around all weekend. And I'll tell you, all year. And Tito Francona he's done a heck of a job. I mean, right now you got to consider him a candidate for manager of the year. You're talking about a team who their anchor in the starting rotation going into the season, or one of them was, one of their best three was expected to be Ubaldo Jimenez. He's been up and down all year. They've had good bats. They had, Michael Bourne in center field, who's improving, a young player who can steal bases or steal you blind. But that bullpen, Perry, I just did not think was going to last and keep the Indians where they needed to be. But here it is, 2 days left in the season. They now would hold, if the season ended now, they'd be tied for the top wild card spot. Meanwhile, the Texas Rangers, who've been in the playoffs 3 years in a row, going back to 2010, have won the AL pennant 2 of the last 3 years. They're up game back. They're on the outside looking in.
They are. Poor Coach Washington. I kind of like the guy.
Me too.
And they just kind of fumbled down the stretch.
They really did. It makes you wonder. I mean, Texas, after the All-Star break, was in the driver's seat.
Right.
In the AL West. They were in the driver's seat. You never can keep, count out Oakland. Oakland's pitching is just too solid, too good to overlook. And when you have bats like Reddick and Yoenis Cespedes and talent like that in the lineup, they're always a threat. But they've just wow. I mean, they've melted down, and now they're on the outside looking in, and it's just shocking. Texas. Here's the thing: they had injuries to their starting pitchers. They had injuries to Alexi Ogando. They had injuries to Matt Harrison. They had players that had 3 of the. Yu Darvish was hurt. They missed starts, and they got hot. And now all of a sudden they're on the outside looking in. Moving to the National League real quick, as we are kind of running out of time here. While the 5 teams that are going to play are decided, home field, Atlanta and St. Louis are tied up right now with 2 games to go in the season. Both teams are 95 and 65. The Dodgers will have that third divisional spot, but they are blazing hot. Pittsburgh and Cincinnati will be the wild cards. It looks like Pittsburgh will get that top spot, but Cincinnati is just 2 games back of Pittsburgh with the tiebreakers. You never know what can happen. So there is a lot to be decided in Major League Baseball over the weekend.
Actually, I wonder, would Cincinnati rather end up in a tie with Pittsburgh and have to play a playoff game to see who's going to host that one game.
When it's strictly, if it's a matter of somebody making the playoffs or not,
Yeah.
they do have play-ins.
Yeah.
But when it's just, when home field is the only thing and I'm kind of paraphrasing here, when home field's the only thing at play, there's a tiebreaker. Off the top of my head, I don't remember. I think Pittsburgh has the jump on Cincinnati in head-to-head, but I'm not 100% sure. I was trying to look that up before the show. But it looks like it's very, very unlikely Cincinnati will be hosting that play-in game.
Okay, well.
One more thing real quick, and I know we got just a minute to go, but there has been an update reported this morning out of Fall River, Massachusetts. Aaron Hernandez, whose biography could be called 3 Yards in a Cloud of Angel Dust. Of course, he was indicted for the murder of 27-year-old semi-pro football player Odin Lloyd on June 27th. His fiancée, Cheyenne Jenkins, was indicted for perjury recently. Apparently, Massachusetts prosecutors said that she had given some misleading testimony in the investigation, so we will keep you abreast of that story as it develops. But Aaron Hernandez, not a good deal.
So that's the show today for Louisiana All-American Sports. And until next week, listen in and... How you